we will now break up the price effect into income and substitution effects. It has been explained above that as price of good X falls, other things remaining constant, consumer will move to a new equilibrium position at a higher IC and would buy more of X and lower at a lower price unless it's a given good. Thus, in figure 8.43, the consumer would initially be at equilibrium at point Q on the IC1, and he then moves to point R on IC2 when the price of good X falls and the budget line twists from PL1 to PL2. So when you are at PL1, you are at point Q in equilibrium. Then with the fall in price of X, you move to PL2 and you have a new equilibrium R. The movement from Q to R represents the price effect. Okay. It is now highly important to understand that this price effect is a net result of two distinct forces, um, substitution and income effects. In other words, price effect can be split into two parts, substitution effect and the income effect. Here are two approaches for decomposing price effect into its two parts, substitution effect and income effect. They are the Hicksian approach and the Slutsky approach. Further, Hicksian approach uses two methods of splitting the price effect, namely compensating variation in income and equivalent variation in income. Slutsky uses cost difference method to decompose price effect into two component parts. How the price effect can be decomposed into income effect and substitution effect by the Hicksian method is explained below, whereas Slutsky's cost difference method will be explained in the appendix of this chapter. Breaking up price effect, compensating variation in income. So we have two methods here. We will discuss the first one first. In the method of breaking up price effect by compensating variation, we adjust the income of the consumer so as to offset the change in satisfaction resulting from variation in change of a good and bring the consumer back to his original indifference curve. Okay, we've already seen this before in this chapter. That is his initial level of satisfaction which he was obtaining before the change in the price occurred. So we would push back his budget line to give him just enough money and then bring him back on the IC, the initial IC. For instance, when the price of a commodity falls and consumer moves to a new equilibrium position at a higher IC, his satisfaction increases. To offset his gain in satisfaction resulting from a fall in the price of the good, we must take away from the consumer enough money to force him to come back to his original IC. Okay, we've already discussed this. This required reduction in income, say through levying a lump sum tax to cancel out the gain in satisfaction or welfare occurred by the reduction in price of a good, is called compensating variation in income. Okay, so you're compensating that rise in income. It is also so called because it compensates in the negative way for the gain in satisfaction resulting from a price reduction of the commodity. So because of the reduction in price, uh, the gain and satisfaction that you're getting is actually taken back from you. Okay, compensated in a negative way. How the price effect is broken up into substitution and income effect through the way of compensating variation in income is illustrated in 8.43. When the price of good X falls and as a result budget line shifts to PL2, we've seen this, the real income of the consumer rises. Okay, the real income is basically rising. We've discussed this. He can buy more of both goods, right, and move to let's say a point R. Okay, let's read into this. With this given income, that is price reduction enlarges consumers opportunity set of the two goods. With the new budget line PL2, he is in equilibrium at point R. Okay, now he is in equilibrium at point R. Before this he was in equilibrium at point Q. Okay, on a higher IC2, and thus gains in satisfaction as a result of fall in price of good X. Okay, he's gaining this because the price of X has fallen. Now if the consumer income is reduced by the compensating variation in income, so that he's forced to come back to the original IC. There's an important point. We've already discussed this, but let's just go over this again. So if the money income is reduced by the compensating variation in income, that negative compensation that we're going to give him because he's moving to a higher level IC with the same level of income, he's forced to come back to the original IC1. He would buy more of X since X is now becoming relatively cheaper. So he's going to buy more of X. In 8.43, as a result of fall in price of X, price line switches to PL2. Now, with the reduction of income by compensating variation, budget line shifts to AB, which will now be drawn parallel to PL2. Okay, we moved down because of compensating variation. We moved down to a newer budget line BA or AB. Okay, so that it just touches the IC1. It's just touching the IC that he was on before, IC1, where he was before the fall in price of X. Since the price line AB has got the same slope as PL2, it's got the same slope as PL2, right? Because there are two parallel lines and the slope of two parallel lines is equal. It represents the changed relative price of X, a price with X being relatively cheaper than before. Okay, it's basically showing the change relative prices with X being relatively cheaper than before. X is relatively cheaper than before because of this. Okay, now X being relatively cheaper than before, the consumer, in order to maximize his satisfaction the new price income situation, substitute X for Y. Okay, he'll buy more of X. Thus, when the consumer's money income is reduced by the compensating variation of income, which is equal to PA in case of Y and L to B in case of X, right? L to B. Again, we saw this. The consumer moves along the same indifference curve and substitutes X for Y. So before anything, he was on Q, so he was buying OM level of X, but now he's going to increase that level of X, or quantity demanded for X to K. Okay, MK is the variation. With the price line AB, he is now at equilibrium at S on the indifference curve. IC1 is buying MK more of X in place of Y. This movement from Q to S of the same indifference curve represents the substitution effect, and this is called the substitution effect because of the fall in price. You are now substituting the good which is cheaper for the good that is dearer. Since it occurs due to the change in relative price alone, real income remaining constant. If the amount of money income which was taken away from him is now given back to him, he would move from S to R on a higher IC. Now, if that money is just given back to him, the compensating variation is given back to him, the movement from S on a lower IC to R on a higher IC is a result of the income effect, and this decomposition is called the income effect. Okay, thus the movement from Q to R due to price effect can be regarded as having taken two steps: first from Q to S as substitution effect, second from S to R as income effect. In this way, we manifest the price effect as combined is a combined result of substitution and income effects. You can see all this. Finally, we have MK plus KN as the price effect, decomposed as substitution and income effects.